Welcome back to another episode of the series called The Players Are Loud. And today we've got, man, a longtime friend and longtime musical collaborator. Man, so proud to have him a part of the new record. This is Rosario. Everybody say hello. D comes to us from Germany, and D used to live in the States. And some of you who have checked out at least, there's at least a couple of the episodes so far that we've talked about the band Beehive, and D was one of the members of Beehive, and as was I, obviously, and boy, we've got lots of crazy memories from those days, but we'll see whether or not we even get to that today. But D, thank you so much for doing this. Welcome to the program, and I don't know how to say hello in German, but if I could, I would.
Hello.
Oh, hello. That's great. Okay. Well,
thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah,
it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you here. Gosh, man, you're one of my best friends. We go way, way back.
Mutual, brother.
Just to kind of bring everyone up to speed on the current. So D played on a song on the new record called Without Love. It's actually based on the theme of the song is based around a Bible verse in 1 Corinthians, and I won't give the show away on that song yet, but a pretty heavy theme to the song, and it really kind of talks. The lyrics that sort of address the idea that you can do all kinds of great things that look great on the outside. The aesthetics, are real friendly looking or real noble looking. But if the heart behind those intentions is not one that's pure, if the intentions are not pure, if you don't do these things in love, these acts of charity or whatever in love, they lose their luster and they don't really carry as much weight as maybe they should. D, it was important for you to be on this song because you and I share a faith life. We share very common ideas about how to live life, and man, you've been such a mentor to me, whether you realize it or not, to me and Stephanie both, in just how you have faced incredible challenges and hardship in your life. So amazing to come through it. I would argue even stronger than before. Man, what a great example you are of a human being, of a father, of a friend. And this is a heavier intro than usual for these interviews, but I just wanted to tell you how important it was to have you on this song because it had a very heartfelt message. So thank you for what you brought to this, and thank you for your friendship.
It was a pleasure, brother. And yeah.
I'm sorry, there's an echo here. I want to shut up now and kind of let you talk about your involvement with the record, and just maybe if there's anything you want to share.
Oh man. Well, first things first. This is, for me, is a dream come true. Believe it or not, this is something that I have always wanted to do. Is collaborate on your stuff. We collaborated on Beehive stuff, and we collaborated on other stuff, but never on your stuff. And I remember going back to I don't know if you remember this, man. You had just joined the band, and Bill had told me that you were playing one of your gigs at a Barnes & Noble bookstore.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
dude.
I remember that circuit.
Yeah. And it was you, and you had Sam there, Sam Skelton, and you had Bill Hart.
I know the exact gig you're talking about. And
I
would not have remembered that had you not brought that up. And I had my a bass I had just gotten from Greg Curbo.
Yeah.
It was a blue,
the blue one.
Curbo. It was called the Retro.
The Retro, correct? Yeah, the 5-string.
That was a prototype that was built, and I was so excited to play that as well. And you were there, man. That's right.
Yeah,
Incredible.
man. I was there, and I remember just taking it all in live, and my jaw dropped, first of all, because I had not really heard you play your jazz stuff yet. So my jaw dropped, and I was like, man, crap! And this guy's gonna play in our band now. How in the world am I gonna keep up with this dude?
Goodness,
It's like. So the wheels were turning, going, oh my goodness, and yeah, and fast forward to our first rehearsals and our first gigs and hitting the road, and I remember me sitting there picking your brain on the bus. It's like, hey Adam, what can I do here? What can I do there? Give me some tips and some pointers, man. And I even remember joining one of your lessons at AIM.
Oh,
when
wow.
you were teaching at AIM. I sat in one of your lessons, and you gave up these charts on what to do in certain chord progressions and how to play a solo like with rhythmically, instead of just playing play stuff like stuff like that. And that whole time I was thinking, man, I would love to be able to get good enough that I can at least one day play on at least one of your songs,
Oh man.
I know that I pestered you through the years when you were like, yeah, I'm working on a new album. Oh, hey man, don't forget about me.
Well, okay. So audience, I have to clarify a couple of things. Number one, D is one of the most humble people you'll ever meet in your life. And although he's saying some very nice things, and man, it means the world to hear you say that. D is a ridiculous guitarist, and he, although we may have been, discussing whatever theory concepts or whatever back then that maybe you weren't studying at the time or whatever, that took absolutely nothing away from his status already as an amazing guitar player. And
thank you, brother.
One of the I want to add too, one of the things about Beehive that was really cool. So we were a funk band, and obviously vocal led and all that other stuff. That was a big, huge part of what we did. But that was a band where we all stretched out too. I mean, I remember
absolutely.
I remember clearly. You had your opportunity in the set, man. You had a really long guitar solo. It was great. And one of the things I'll never, ever forget about how you played solos, like a long guitar solo or a long bass solo or a long solo period, it's intimidating, the thought of doing that, because you think about it, it's like, if you're playing for a long period of time, it certainly is possible you're going to run out of ideas, but the allotted time is through. And there's a lot to be learned from putting yourself in that situation. But D, you've always been a master of building the solo and telling a story. And you did such a great job back then. You still do it now. You did it on this new record. You introduce something, and it's like you sort of draw people in, and then by the time you get to the end, it's like you got some blazing thing you're doing. It's like a perfectly timed tale told through guitar strings. But where did you get that from? Is that just from people you've listened to, or you just kind of naturally that way?
That is a great question, man. And honestly, believe it or not, you are the first person that has ever asked me that question.
Oh, well, congratulations. You're welcome.
I learned my skill. You have to see where I come from. My musical background. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. And in Puerto Rico,
I love how you did the thing,
the Spanish thing,
where
sí, español.
It's the suddenly hop into accent mode.
Sí, señor.
No, but that's the thing. That's what we do to respect and pay homage to the culture and the names and all that stuff. Sorry. Just having fun with
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah, growing up in Puerto Rico, I was surrounded by salsa music. And that was all I was exposed to outside of the house. Inside of our home, my father was a huge American music fan, and I remember sitting there listening to every Beatles album he had, and I would just play them over and over and over and over. I mean, I was 3 years old, 4 years old.
Wow. So your introduction to pop music or popular music was the Beatles.
The Beatles, man.
So cool. Wow.
Yeah. From Meet the Beatles all the way to the last album. And my dad had a Hendrix album in there too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Electric Ladyland.
Now it's all starting to make sense.
Yeah. So of course that piqued my interest in the electric guitar. So I bought one, and when I was 12 or 13, I started getting more into the rock stuff. And I remember the band that influenced me the most. I went from the Beatles to Rush.
Wow.
Like right away.
Boy.
Alex Lifeson, man, that guy is the rhythm king, man.
I tell you what, Rush has been a recurring theme in these interviews, and not by any of my provocation. It's amazing to hear how many people in our generation, like, coming up in our musical circles, were influenced by them. But
yeah, man, I think everybody that I know was influenced by them in some shape or form. Absolutely. So I got my rhythm chops from Alex Lifeson. And then that is when I started getting into soloing. I was 14, 15, and I started trying to figure out how this solo thing worked. I did not know music theory. I did not know music. I was just kind of figuring it out on my own. And then I started listening to two bands that these guys really drove this point home for me. Toto, Steve Lukather.
Oh, yeah.
And Journey, Neil Schon.
Yes.
And those guys are the masters of the melodic solo, especially Neil Schon.
Agreed.
Neil would always play the main vocal melody as a solo, and then he would break off into his own little thing, and then come back to the melody, and it was amazing. And that's where I got it from.
Wow,
that's where I got it from.
Man, and it makes so much sense now. Just kind of tying that together. I all these years I've known you, I never really knew the timeline of your influences. I mean, I knew you liked those bands, but I didn't realize that they were such a integral part of how you were learning how to play guitar. That's really cool. Yeah. Do you remember the very first guitar solo you learned by chance?
Oh my goodness, yes I can. The very first guitar solo that I learned was for my first high school band talent show. The music teacher had heard from somebody that there was this kid in the school that could play the electric guitar. So he called me. I was not even part of the music program.
Oh, wow.
But he calls me into his office and asked me if I would be interested in being part of his band, the last band of the show. And I said, sure. And he's like, yeah, then we're going to be playing a Led Zeppelin song. And I have to be honest with you, back then I was like, Led who?
Yeah.
So at that moment, I was introduced to the magic of Jimmy Page, and the song was Stairway to Heaven.
Oh, wow. Yeah, classic.
So here I was, 15 years old, had to learn Stairway to Heaven, all of the guitar parts, and then have to do that mega long solo at the end. So you can imagine how I was feeling. I was like, shaky hands, didn't know what to do, barely knew my own instrument at the time, and
wow.
And from everyone's accounts to this day, I did a pretty good job.
That's awesome.
I don't believe him, but I guess it.
The Led Zeppelin catalog should probably be required curriculum in every aspiring guitar player's educational
absolutely
path. I mean, just
absolutely, man.
I'm like that too when it comes to Led Zeppelin. John Paul Jones. I mean, I tell everybody, he taught me the blues scale. I could not get enough of his bass lines, and
phenomenal.
To this day, I mean, I hold them in highest esteem. With so much of the the other stuff that I was really trying to, aspire to play. But Led Zeppelin, good grief, what an iconic band for musicians and just appreciators of music alike. I mean, just,
yeah, man,
just incredible. Yeah. They were, I guess they really were kind of an anomaly, when they first came out, in terms of the uniqueness of what they were doing, and good grief, just the time signature craziness that was going on with them.
Absolutely, man. John Bonham, that guy was a monster percussionist, man.
There were not many bands that were successful at bringing time signature changes to the mainstream of album-oriented rock or whatever. I mean, it's just, man, pretty amazing stuff for sure. When you when you were kind of growing, through this, through listening to these different players that you were following, did you ever take any sort of like sharp left turns or right turns and break off into like completely different style of music? Like, were you ever sort of mesmerized to be taken off that path, at least temporarily? Was there, because you already had a diverse musical background from your cultural experiences. Did you ever get into anything else? Like, were you ever Duran nut or anything?
Actually, well, pop music, yeah, man. Pop music was an integral part of my growing up. I mean, even bands like the Police and stuff like that. In Puerto Rico, unfortunately, we only had one radio station that played American music, and it was called Alpha Rock 106. And they played a lot of progressive stuff like Saga. I'm also a huge fan of Saga. Ian Crichton, the guitarist, that guy is a phenomenal guitarist that is highly underrated in the U.S.
Now, Saga, weren't they a Canadian band?
Yeah, a Canadian band. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay, cool.
And they have like 20 plus albums.
See, this was a huge learning curve for me in so many ways doing this record, because this being like a departure for me and having the vocal stuff and all of that, the feedback that I've been getting from listeners, it's been crazy, because someone go, oh man, this vocal really reminds me of this, or oh man, totally takes me back to this. And they're telling me bands that I've heard of, but I never listened to. And I'm such a late bloomer with Saga, because I was only familiar with the radio hits, maybe just a tiny bit deeper under the surface of that from having friends that were listening to them and just, hearing in a passive way some albums getting played. But it's funny how, because of the influences you have, there may be a pool of bands out there that kind of fall into the same category. Yeah. You're writing music that's influenced by your direct influences, not realizing that it's also probably sounding like it could be influenced from these other fringe bands that you never even got into. It's a weird thing.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So that's been cool to hear. But Saga was one of the bands that they brought up. So now I'm all on this kick for Saga. I'm like going back and listening and going, oh wow, I never even knew about this. And so I'm now going back. It's so cool.
They have a huge catalog. It
really is. It's
and it's really sad. It's really sad that in the States they never took off. As a matter of fact, I never got to see them live, and this is crazy. I never got to see them live until I moved here to Germany, and they did their 40th anniversary tour.
Oh wow!
And I got to watch them live, man. And I was
what was that like?
It was, dude. For me, it was a mind-blowing experience to see the band that I grew up listening to in Puerto Rico finally live.
How much of the band is original members?
4 of the 5 were original.
Is the vocalist drummer the same, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is that
Michael
right?
Sadler. Michael Sadler, the Crichton brothers, and I forget the drummer's name. Oh my goodness, Negus. Yeah, his last name is Negus. So
wow.
Keith can probably tell you.
Man, You could tell a true fan of a band when they're starting to name band members. You know, it's not like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I loved Saga. They were amazing.
Yeah.
I don't, who was the singer? Bono?
Yeah, who was the singer? Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, man, I mean, but that was really actually not my big departure musically. Because I was already by the time I was 17, I had moved to the mainland U.S. to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Falcons, baby. I know. They'll do better this year, 2021, guaranteed.
I'm glad I'm not a football fan because there'd be a lot of even more heartache in my life. Than,
oh man, it was painful to watch them. But they'll do better this year, guaranteed. Cool. But yeah, when I moved to the mainland U.S., you know, I dug deep into blues and funk. You know, I fell in love with funk music. You know, Parliament, Funkadelic, JB and the BBs, which is James Brown's first band, Cameo, who are from Atlanta. You know, stuff like that. Prince, Morris Day and the Time, and on and on and on. But my huge departure was once I was a member of Beehive, and we brought along this bass player by the name of Adam Nitty. and that's when
everything just fell apart from there.
For me, it was an eye-opening experience, man. When I first got to hear you play, our first rehearsals, the first gig that I got to see, and then when we sat down and I asked you, it was like, you know, who are your influences, your bass influences? And that's when you brought up John Patitucci.
Yeah.
And you brought up the Chick Corea Electric Band.
Yeah.
So I went out and I bought well, by then it was the first album, I think, the Chick Corea Electric Band.
Yeah.
Which had the song "Got a Match" on it.
Oh yeah, that's.
And that for me, that's my mind was blown, and I also got like scared. I was like, "How am I going to do this on a guitar, man?" It's like, it's like I didn't even know how to do half of that stuff. So, but you kind of threw me into the deep end when it came to jazz fusion, and I just kept on going from there, man. I just started listening to all of these other fusion players and all these other fusion bands, and that's what opened up my eyes to the jazz thing. It was you. It's your fault.
It's my fault, boy. You know, I want to give like a what am I trying to say? Like a complimentary account to those days because, you know, whether y'all realized it or not, you know, finally getting a more formal membership into what was labeled as a funk band back then was a big deal because it's funny. I know you've experienced this before. You know, like for human nature, you know, people's first impressions are usually the lasting impression, or at least temporary impression until they're shown or proven otherwise. But because of kind of like the different musical situations that I was kind of, you know, floundering around in at the time, there were some who had heard me in like a fusion context for the first time, and they kind of just sort of like put me in that box of, you know, oh, this is what that player does, you know. And even though I up to that point had played in other like R&B and also like what I'd call more like funk rock type of bands. King Daddy comes to mind as one of the bands but before the Beehive days. It was for me, it was like a needed boost of confidence and vindication to have, you know, players like Billy and you and Tom. It was like that sort of like approval of this guy fits into the band, because you know how it is, man. Like you can't necessarily, I want to say this diplomatically, you know, like just because a player can play jazz or just because a player can play rock does not mean that they are already going to be seasoned sounding player in a funk context or in an R&B context, right? Mm-hmm. You really do have to be a student of the music before you're able to play it. It takes so much listening, like you're talking about, coming up as a kid, 3 years old, like you're having an opportunity to soak this stuff in. And I'm one of those people who believes that you can't, unless there is some divine exception made for you, and you're a prodigy already, born that way, able to do some certain thing. It's like, to be a seasoned player in a style of music requires immersion and listening and experience and all of that. And most people that heard me in a fusion context, they didn't know anything about my experience trying to learn in listening to R&B, funk, and all these other things that were more on the fringe from whatever, from what they were seeing. And that's something that I've had to fight for my entire career. It's like, people trying to get a read on what kind of player you are. And I love so many different types of music. I've worked hard at trying to play different types of music. It's tough sometimes, to not be pigeonholed, and
Absolutely.
Do you ever feel like you had been pigeonholed in your music career?
Oh man, I would be lying to you if I said no. I've been pigeonholed many times, unfortunately. Another problem, which is sort of like the flip side of what you were talking about, is when people see you, for example, Adam Nitti is playing, and you go watch Adam Nitti, and you think to yourself, that guy's a great jazzer. But then you think to yourself that this is the only thing that Adam can do. That's the same thing that has happened to me. The people that have met me in a certain musical scenario think that I'm great at that, but that is the only thing I can do.
Yeah.
And that is rather frustrating. But I also understand they have not seen you outside of that musical context. When they do get to see you out of that context, and they realize, oh wow. One example that I can give you about from that is, if you remember in our Beehive days, and we started playing in this little town called Columbus, Georgia.
Oh yes.
And there we met Kenny Thomas, the country singer, and his band Cornbread. And I remember at one point in time something had happened, and they asked me to fill in for a couple of gigs. And
that's right.
Yeah.
That's starting to come back to me now.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I ended up playing a couple gigs with Cornbread as a sub, and I ended up becoming their regular guitarist. So
tell the viewers more about what Cornbread was like as a band, just stylistically and all that.
Cornbread was a country band, more country pop, because we didn't have violins and we didn't have lap steels, and Kenny doesn't sing with that twang,
Yeah, right.
But it's more, I would say, more Americana than country. Kenny just has a great way with words. He's a poet, He's a poet that brings his words to life by using music, and it was very, I would say, Americana, strong Americana, country pop, country rock kind of stuff, and I did that for a while. 2 or 3 years with him.
And we
also toured.
That was during the Beehive days, right?
That was towards the end of the Beehive days, actually.
Because I thought I remembered you juggling both at one point.
Yeah. Wow. And at one point in time, I even became sort of like a permanent resident in Columbus. Actually, Columbus. I was spending a lot of time down there. So.
Boy, we had some fun down there.
Yeah, we did, man. Great people out there, and I'm still friends with quite a few of those.
That's so
the old Columbus crowd.
Is that right?
Yeah, and Kenny has moved on to do some really great things, man. I
was gonna just ask you, what is Kenny doing now?
He's a motivational speaker, and started a family. still does work with veterans. You know that he's a veteran himself from the Rangers, Army Rangers.
Wow.
And he still does his music. He still sings in festivals and for special events and stuff like that. Yeah,
well, God bless
really
him. That is really cool. That's very
he's doing
cool.
some good stuff, man.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, that goes to show you, you know, that that's why I don't like to pigeonhole people, because you only know that one chapter of their book.
Right.
You know,
and, you know, just being honest, I mean, I catch myself doing that still today, and having been victim of it, still, it's just, like I said, it's human nature. Like if
it is,
you know, if you're following a player, and this is the blessing and the curse sometimes of social media in terms of what sort of traffic you're getting from certain things. If all of, you know, if you're playing like in two bands that are equally as busy, and one of the band has got, you know, serious social media chops, and they're posting everything, and you're playing in this certain context, and people see and hear you in this context all over social media, then this other band you're playing in, you're killing it in that band, but they hardly ever post anything, and no one ever gets to see you do this totally different stylistic thing. What are people going to assume? Well, they're obviously going to assume, oh, this is what they do. This is the main thing. You know, it's not, it's understandable, you know, that's kind of how it works. But I think the lesson that I'm taking from this more than anything else is just, you can't get, because I used to, I would get so hung up and just worried about what if people see this, like, you know, to the point of when I first moved to Nashville, I was afraid to let anybody see any instrument of mine that wasn't a 4-string on a session, or, you know,
really.
It was so,
wow.
Yeah. And I kind of, I hate to admit this, but that was even at the advice of a couple people that were kind of telling me, hey, you know, being new to town, you know, you might not want to share your instrumental stuff too much, you know, because people here, you know, they get the wrong idea or whatever. And I didn't want to really believe that, but
it makes sense.
It makes sense. And, you know, when it comes to having trust from fellow musicians, and just, you know, knowing that you can do the job the way it needs to be done, you really have to, and this is the point I was going to make. And the thing that I took from this more than anything else is just always make sure that, you know, whoever you're working for, whatever your situation you're working, you're always playing to that situation to the absolute best of your ability. And
yeah, absolutely.
You can't control what everybody sees. You can't control if somebody pigeonholes you or not. All you really have control over is your own, you know, performance in each setting you're blessed with, you know?
Yeah. Very, very, very true. Yeah, and that is one thing that I've had to learn here also. I mean, I moving here to Germany and getting into the music scene, actually, believe it or not, by accident, because to backtrack a little bit, when you mentioned moving to Nashville, I have to be honest with you, that was sort of like a sad time for me, because that was when you had left Beehive, and Beehive sort of limped along for a little while longer, and then Bill made the decision to move the band to Nashville also, and around that time I had some problems at home that prevented me from moving, so everything kind of just fell off to the wayside. And at that point in time, I was also not happy with what I was doing musically, or even with my own playing. I was just not comfortable with it. I didn't feel good. So I decided to just put it down. I said, you know, I'm not gonna try to find another gig, or I'm not gonna try to pursue this anymore. And then, of course, met a girl, moved to Germany, following the girl, married the girl. And in that process, I sold all of my stuff, every possession that I had, amplifiers, pedals, guitars, you name it, studio equipment. I sold it all, and
so you'd really decided, like, I'm pretty much done with this.
Yeah, I got out of that boat, man, and I had only one guitar left. That's it, and I moved here to Germany with this one guitar, thinking to myself, okay, new life, new culture, new everything, and I'll just have my little guitar here to keep me to keep me busy on whenever I want to jam a little bit.
Little pastime thing.
Yeah. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but as things go, one thing led to another. My wife's cousin heard one of the Beehive CDs, and she gave it to her boyfriend, who was a musician, and ball just started rolling. And the next thing I know, I'm getting phone calls to play here and play there. Wow. And could you help me here? Could you help me there? And the next thing I know, man, there's like the mafia, you can't get out. You cannot escape.
Man.
And they just sucked me back in. And and there I was again, having to buy new gear, new guitars, new pedals, new everything, relearn how to play, because I hadn't played in like a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah.
Man, I can relate to you so deeply on that level, because there have been, well, multiple times I'd gotten so frustrated and so beaten down by the challenges of the music industry, and at some point we'll get into a lot more detail about those those circumstances, but I remember the first time I threw my hands up in the air and just said, God, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. It's just bringing me more heartache than it is fulfillment. And, I wanted to be away from it. And It's funny how the universe kind of decided, well, no, you're not done with this yet. And it sounds like the same thing happened to you. And it's both encouraging and like frustrating at the same time. You're like, oh, here we go again. It's like,
oh, come on, man, really? No, yeah.
But you can't change who you are, who you were created to be, and music happens to be one of the communication methods that has been manifested through you in a very divine way. Everybody who knows you knows you as a guitar player. Not that that's the only thing you are, but they always associate you with music. And here you are, you move, I don't know how many thousands of miles Germany is from the States, but you go away. Talk about being far removed from your music, and then here you are now again. Mr. Guitar. I know you've done touring and sessions and corporate, private. You've done everything there, and
pretty much.
It's just funny how that stuff. Even if you can take the income away, right? You can take the gigs away. You can take strip all these things, the gear. You can take the gear away, as in your case, but you can't take the musician away. It just remains. Pretty
absolutely, man. That is something that has been ingrained in our DNA. I mean, and it's not for lack of trying. I have knowingly and willfully tried to walk away from this a couple of times now, and it's just.
Yeah.
The farther away I walk, the bigger the pool.
Yeah.
And one day, because here in Germany, to live off music is quite a bit more difficult than in the States. To find gigs here is a lot more difficult. The music venues are not as easily available as in the States. Sessions are harder to come by because of the fact that you have a lot of good players in a very small space. So everybody's vying for all of these gigs. So it's really difficult to make a living off music here. And I got to the point where not playing to playing a lot and being really busy and even joining a band here. And we toured for 3-4 years, and we were even on the German version of MTV here and so on and so forth. And then, just like a shooting star, it went and it just all collapsed. And I went back to the whole, trying to find a gig here, trying to find a gig there. I have to get a job to supplement the income because I was not making enough income. And I started going through that whole thing again in my head of, why am I doing this? What in the world? Why am I beating my head against the wall again?
Yeah, this is illogical.
Yeah. So I started that process again, believe it or not, after my sons were born.
Mm.
That period, since I had to spend so much time in the hospital with them, that sort of broke a lot of the communication that I had with the music community. And I actually lost a few, or more than a few gigs during this period of 6 months where I did not talk to anybody, didn't even pick up my instrument. And when I came back, it was like a lot of the opportunities had moved on because other guys had to fill in my shoes. And at that moment, I made the decision of, okay, I'll take this as a sign that it's time for me to put this to bed already, enough.
Yeah.
And and about a year into it, after I removed the business side of it from my head, and I sat down and I just listened to music purely for the enjoyment of music.
Yeah.
And I picked up my instrument purely for the enjoyment of playing music, creating music, creating something. There's not that many people in the world that can do what you and I can do. Right. They cannot create music, so that's a real privilege. Yeah. And that's how I started viewing it. The good Lord above, thank you, God, blessed me with the ability to create something that not many people can.
Yeah.
So I decided to start approaching it from that angle. Just do it, enjoy it.
Yeah.
If nobody listens to it, fine. I still made it for me.
Yeah.
And if millions enjoy it, great.
Yeah.
But just do it for me. Not do it for a record label, not do it for a band, not do it for publicity or for your next Instagram or Facebook live video.
Right.
Just do it for you. Yeah. And that joy came back.
That's amazing.
And people started noticing that, and I started getting a few gigs again. But now my goal is to play music to enjoy myself.
Yeah.
And to bring joy to my life and to my situation, and to teach my kids how to play music, because they love music. So I sit with them and we listen to all kinds of music, all kinds of bands. And I have one son learning bass, and he's crazy about you. I have another son learning the drums. So cool. I got my power trio now. I got the bass and drums.
How cool is it that now, and you're not an old guy by any means. It's like you're already creating a legacy in your son's life, a musical legacy, which is a gift that they will cherish, I'm sure, for the rest of their life.
I hope so.
It's so amazing. The idea of going back to playing music just for the enjoyment of it, essentially taking the pressure off of yourself, That's a heavy concept to discuss when you really break it down, because we start out in love with music. The goal becomes, this is all I want to do. I want to be able to make a living doing music. Mm-hmm. You're lucky enough to reach that goal. You're making a living playing music, but now music has sort of stepped into this sort of paradoxical role of both theoretically providing you the fulfillment that you've always wanted from doing it all the time, to also becoming a liability because now you're relying on it for your livelihood and for your income and to provide for your family. Mm-hmm. And those two those are two opposing forces, really, when you think about it. And some people, some of you that are watching this or listening to this, you may, unless you've kind of been in that position, it may kind of sound interesting or surprising, because there's a very fine line between that fulfillment and liability when you start doing music for a living.
Yeah, and, very fine line.
And I try to be as transparent as I can in these interviews, because I don't want to come across ever as like, oh man, I became a musician and I started making a living in music, and it's just been so awesome since then, because my dream came true. Of course this has been more than anything else like a blessing, and a gift. But it is so difficult it seems like it gets harder every year to be able to sustain this type of career. And, it really does, unless you are in that sort of elite top fraction of a percent that's at the very top of the mainstream charts, and you have that machine going for you. Yeah, you really do. You are really forced to diversify, and at least in some context, to be able to make all the points converge together on an actual livelihood. It's very challenging, and
it's
something that I don't think it's talked about enough by those that are in the positions where the positions people aspire to be in. I would love to hear more players that are just household names talk more about the challenges, and some of them are, don't get me wrong, but
some of them are, and some of them have been very open and honest about it. There's one cat in particular that I by chance, believe it or not, it was by chance. I was actually watching a Tim Pierce video, the session guitarist Tim Pierce, and he had invited this cat on there by the name of Tom Bukovac.
Man, I know Tom. I've played sessions with Tom in Nashville before.
Oh my goodness, what a monster, dude! Woo!
He is amazing on so many levels.
Yeah, he has his own podcast, and he every once in a while he talks about the fact that even this top echelon of players, this 1% of session players that get practically every call there is to do practically every session, 2020 showed that they're just as vulnerable as anyone else. And some of them, for lack of a better term, and I'm not trying to be funny here, but they had to face the music and realize that, oh my goodness, I need to find something else to do quick to make ends meet, because the livelihood is gone.
Yeah, I've said it on other videos before. I call 2020 the great equalizer for that very reason.
Absolutely.
No level of success, however you define that, has been immune from it. There's been casualties, in everybody's
unfortunately,
just about.
Unfortunately, yeah. But we gotta keep on trucking, and I like to watch Tom, because Tom basically just boils it down to just pick up your guitar and play, and make the cares go away, and that's what I've been doing in 2020. That's what I did, and oddly enough, 2020 for me, studio wise, was one of the busiest years that I've had.
Isn't that crazy? That is crazy.
I've been doing this for more than 30 years, and 2020 I did, I think, more studio gigs than the last 2 years combined, or the 2 previous years combined.
Man, you are not the first person I've talked to. I can't say the same for myself, although I'm pleasantly surprised the studio stuff did not completely disappear, thanks to my ability to do things remotely for people. But you're not the first person I've talked to. I've talked to numerous people that have told me that this 2020 was their strongest year as far as their recording revenue or their crowdfunding or social media based revenue is concerned, like with their Patreon and stuff like that. So there is a way to survive all of this. It's just you really do, though. You really have to work hard at kind of figuring out, what are the paths that are still viable when so much has been shut down. And I know I'm busting at trying to figure that out. I don't have it all figured out yet, but
and we might not have it all figured out either, but the process will dictate where we go next. One thing that I would like to mention to the people that are watching this is, or to guitar players that are probably looking into getting into the business. One lesson that I learned, which was a very difficult lesson, not being in this lesson, but for me, the thought process within me is the fact that the guitar and music do not define who I am as a human being.
Amen to that. Yeah.
And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, because I always, for a very long time, I always thought that people liked me or respected me or called me or wanted to hang out with me because of what I could do with the instrument. And for a long time, that's how I lived. And it was not until I decided to put my instrument down the second time, living here, that I realized that I didn't have any friends walk away that were not involved in the music industry. These people just, they were still there. It didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how I did it. They were still there for me. They were still calling me. We were still spending time together, having good friendships. And not once did I have to talk about my guitar or play my guitar. Yeah. And that's when I realized, okay, this for some of us, this has been sort of an ego problem of the fact that, okay, things are not good right now, so I need to get another job, or I need to get a job in order to complement. But then people are not going to look at me seriously, and people are not going to take me seriously, and they choose to stay in this problem area. I have one person that comes to mind here that is actually struggling with that at the moment, and this person has really, in my opinion, has brought more heartache upon themselves than what is needed, simply because their ego is preventing them from stepping out of this musical spotlight of, I'm a musical genius, and if I step out of this, people are not going to take me seriously anymore. Right. So maybe some people might not take you seriously anymore, but I think that's going to be only a small percentage. Yeah. Everyone else that you surround yourself with, I'm pretty sure that they won't hate you or mock you or think you're any less if you put down your instrument, or you have to put down your instrument for one reason or another. Yeah. Our friendship, for me, it has never been about the music. Yeah, it's been about, here, of course. Yeah. It's been about Adam Nitty, the person, the human being. You're my brother. You've been my brother from the first time we met, and music has not had anything to do with it. It's a cool bonus, but it's never been the driving force in our friendship. Yeah, and even with someone like my wife, when she first met me, she got to see me play live on stage a few times, and she listened to the recordings that I've done and the songs that I've written and things like that. And when I started struggling with this situation of should I continue, should I not continue, she reminded me, it's like, look, I didn't marry you just because you can play the guitar or you can play cool solos or anything. I married you because of you. Yeah. So even if you could no longer play the guitar, that doesn't matter because I still have you. And that really drove the point home to me, that the guitar does not define who I am. That was a huge weight off my back.
I'm sorry, there's an echo. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and that was a huge weight off my back.
Yeah, man. Thank you for sharing that. That's really, really good. Well, our identities obviously cannot be completely wrapped up or just encompassed by what we do musically or whatever your skill set is or your career is. We have to be the same person whether or not we have a guitar in our hands. It's really important. What a great point. Thanks so much for that. I can't continue to ignore the countless amplifiers that are stacked on top of your head in this video that you're suspending with your head. Now is the point where we get to the nerdy section of the interview where you talk about your gear and gear. I'd love to know selfishly what you used to play through for the tune on my record, and if there's anything else you want to share, love to hear it.
Yeah, on your tune, I got to play a guitar that sadly I don't have with me anymore. It was on loan Part of my musical experience here has been that the Lord has blessed me with a great opportunity to work with the largest, or one of the largest, I think they're the largest, music distribution companies in Germany, if not Europe.
Wow.
And I have a couple of dear friends who work for this company, and this company provides different brands, or they carry different brands. And one of the brands that they carry is Vox, Vox amplifiers.
Cool.
And I've been blessed, man. Those guys at Vox have been just super amazing folks, man, that believe in what I do and like what I do on the guitar, and they believed in me enough to let me play their stuff and sponsor me. And
that's great. So
I've been with them now since 2007, I think.
Wow. That's awesome.
2008. I used to do clinics for Vox amps to show the new products and new pedals and guitars and everything else that Vox has brought out through the years. I'm surrounded by Vox gear.
Yeah, it looks like it.
and for the album, I used my AC30 hand wired, which is over here, but you cannot see it right now.
Cool.
And I use as a second amp this new series from Vox called the MV series, which are these little small yet very powerful, great sounding amps. And they have 5 different styles
Are they like
sounds.
A practice amp kind of thing?
No. It is an actual amplifier. Of course, you can use it for practicing. Actually, you know what? I'll show you right now because it's standing right next to me. All I gotta do is unplug it so you can see it. And this is the other amp that I use.
Oh wow, it's bite-sized.
It is.
That's amazing.
And it's called Vox MV50 Boutique.
Cool.
And this is an actual fully functional amplifier that you can use on live gigs or in the studio.
Wow.
Even though it looks like a pedal, or it is the size of a pedal, but this sucker pushes out 50 watts, man.
Wow. That is really cool.
It's a monster. It really, and it has a great tone. And I know we can get into the whole debate of tube versus solid state versus yeah. Well, these guys use a technology called new tube, which is an actual tube. It's an actual triode tube in there, but they use LED lights to do their magic. Cool. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know exactly how they did that. All I can tell you is, to my ears, I can put this sucker right next to my all-tube AC30, and they're neck and neck, man.
Wow.
No joke.
That says a lot. That's really impressive.
So
wow.
I used that, and the guitar, unfortunately, which I was gonna say, also I got it from the folks at, the name of the company is Musikmaya.
Okay.
And they're one of the largest, or the largest music distributors here in Germany or in Europe. And the folks at Musikmaya also carry Ernie Ball. And they've been nice enough to provide me through the years with Ernie Ball stuff and Ernie Ball picks. And they have also provided me with Ernie Ball guitars. Nice. And this one in particular was, for me, a dream. It was a Steve Lukather model, the Luke 3. In what was the name of that color? They call it plum burst. It was a purple guitar. I'm a huge Prince fan. My favorite color is purple. And they brought this guitar, and I was like, dude, I gotta try this guitar out. So they gave it to me on loan for a couple of months, and that's the guitar that I used for the
fantastic
for the solo for the album.
So now I know.
And the most important piece, because I had to throw that into the loop. You and I share similar gear that comes from the same company.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
From our good friend Bob Weil in Franklin, Tennessee, Mr. True Tone.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this is what I used on the album, on the solo, the Route 66, man.
Yeah.
This thing was, what can I say? It just sings. It makes your guitar sing. It makes the amp sing. It just opens things up. And
boy, Bob's doing some amazing things.
Oh man,
for sure.
Bob is the man.
Really,
and his gear is amazing. For those of you watching, go check it out. True Tone, formerly known as Visual Sound.
Yeah.
True Tone pedals. Root. Check it out.
I have years ago when they were still Visual Sound. Bob was so kind. He took a Route 66 and he modded it for me to cater more to bass. And I don't know exactly what he did, but it essentially what it did was it retained more low end when it was in drive mode, so that it didn't get filtered out as much. And since then I've got my own little collection of Visual Sound and True Tone pedals that I really enjoy. I got them all over the place, man. I'm sure he appreciates the shout out as well. So very cool.
I got him all over the place. I got I got him laying all over the studio. I got Visual Sound True Tone stuff all over the studio.
Yeah. So
and I also want to mention.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes. I also want to mention two more companies that have been very. They've been awesome to me. One of the company's names is Hackstrom Guitars out of Sweden. Cool.
Yeah,
I've been using Hackstrom also the last few years, 3 or 4 years. Beautiful guitars, and the guitar company that really took a chance with me after I moved here and I started doing session work and I started playing with different bands and I hit the road. I called them out of the blue. My wife said, because I mentioned to her, it's like, I'm on the road, I need guitars, and I cannot buy them. How can I get this? And she's like, why don't you call somebody? I'm like, no one's going to give me guitars. I mean, they don't even know who I am. But she said to try anyway, and I did, and I contacted a couple of people, and one of them got back to me, and the name of the company is Blade Guitars.
Oh,
these guys right here.
Yeah, absolutely.
There we go. Blade Guitars. They make beautiful,
nice,
beautiful instruments that play and sound fantastic. And these guys took a chance on me and made me one of their endorsers.
That's so
without even knowing anything about me. I literally had a meeting with them, and they just went just from the vibe that they got from me.
That's awesome.
And they've been supporting me ever since. Blade Guitars, really quick, are made by Gary Levinson, who is an American who lives in Switzerland, and he's been building guitars for over 30 years. And this is the result. Just phenomenal instruments.
That's so cool.
And they've been really supportive. So, Gary, if you're watching, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll have to make sure to share this with all of your sponsors, and man, thank you, by the way, for giving them props, because it's because of companies like these, and for me it's been Aguilar, Diodario, Ibanez. I mean, without these companies' support, we just don't have as much access to the great gear. And
that's true.
That my companies have been supportive in educational endeavors as well. So yeah, we all, to all these companies, we love you all and appreciate
Absolutely.
it. So thank you for bringing that up. That's really awesome. Kind of drawing to a close here. I want to make sure that people, if they want to hire you to play on their music, again, the beauty of this technology that exists now is that we don't have to be in the same room to get tracks done and hire great players. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want your skills on their tunes?
Oh man, Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
If you don't know me personally, or you don't know some of the people that work with me, you can look me up on Facebook under D Rosario, or you can look me up on Instagram under the D Rosario.
Cool.
because there are a few. I found out the hard way that there's a few more D Rosarios out there. I thought I was the only one, and I've been robbed of the privilege.
Oh no! So now I can't say the one, the only D Rosario. It's like the one of a few.
The one of many D Rosarios.
But certainly my favorite D Rosario out there.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else that before we go that you want to share with anyone in terms of like projects that you want to share or stuff for them to look out for? Any news whatsoever that you want to share?
Oh man, all I can say is support your local musicians. You know, try to do as much as you can to support them. You know, I know some guys are even delving into creating merch, you know, merchandise. Go to their websites, go to their merch stores, buy their stuff, buy their music. That's the best way that you can help some of these cats, or all of these cats. I mean, we all need help. Me, I don't have any, I don't have any merch, and I don't have any music to sell. So you can support me by calling me to do sessions for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be more than happy to. I'll be more than happy to. So
yeah, and I've been encouraging everyone. Please take these players up on their offer. This has been a great outlet to learn that you can have direct interaction with these. Every one of these players that's been interviewed so far has been kind enough to offer that access. So
excellent.
Man, D, thank you so much for doing this, and it's so great to see you. And I'm just so grateful that we can do this across the computers and just make it all happen. So
I know it's crazy, man. Here we are 2 continents away and with a big ocean between us, and it feels like I'm in your studio talking, man.
So great. So
it's great to be talking to you, man. Really, brother, I really miss you, man, and I really miss playing with you and being on stage with you, and I'm hoping and praying that one day soon we can do this again.
Amen.
There or here, or who knows.
Amen. The feeling's mutual. Man, all the best to you, and God bless you and your beautiful family. And yeah, likewise, man. I hope we're able to hang it in person again, but before too long. So everybody, just as Dee said, you know, just try to support folks. You know, if you have the ability to, you know, players like us are really trying to, you know, stretch and make ourselves available in different ways. So So yeah, we love all y'all.
And for those of you watching, if you haven't bought it yet, I'm not saying this because Adam is my brother. I'm saying this with all sincerity. Get the new CD. It is a phenomenal CD. Excellent musicianship. The guitar players on there are just unbelievable, man. Yeah. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the other guys, Scott and the guy, I forget the name. Oh my goodness, I feel so bad. Foley. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, we interviewed him as well, so he's also going to be.
I'm looking forward to that interview, man, because that cat, just tore it up, man.
Cool, man. Thank you for the album plug. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool. I love you, brother. Please give a big hug to your wife for me.
Will do. Love you too. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, man.
Likewise, man. May God bless you.
All right, man. Chat soon.
Take care, brother.
All right. Bye.